we are getting ready to get started here, and again, if you can't hear, please feel free to move your chair up closer so that you can. We don't want anyone to be here and not be able to hear. Remind us if we forget, if somebody doesn't want to come forward for their question, to repeat the question. If you can't hear their question, just wave your hand wildly. That usually helps me remember to, somehow just to repeat a question. So, all right, so I just want to get started tonight. My name is Amber Keithley. This is Dr. Eric Westman, and I'm with HEAL Clinics. I am the program advisor for HEAL Clinics. So I'm the first person you usually talk to when you are calling in to HEAL. I actually came to HEAL not just as an employee, but I insisted that they hire me because I went through the program myself, and I was so inspired by what happened for me within the program that I wanted to actually share that with everyone else. And I started out pre-diabetic. I had all kinds of issues going on. My cholesterol was way high. I was taking 2 of the major anti-inflammatories, the Voltaren actually, which is a really strong anti-inflammatory, the highest dose twice a day for inflammation in my elbows and shoulders from being a massage therapist for 25 years. And I have not touched one of those since I went ketogenic, since I started this plan. I've not had to. And I can set my elbows on the table, I can throw my arms out, I can do all those things, I can lift, I can push. I'm not doing any push-ups, don't worry, but I wasn't gonna accidentally do that. But I most definitely have been able to make major changes in my health. Not pre-diabetic anymore. My A1C is 5.2, so I think that's pretty good. And then I lost 50 pounds as a bonus, so which was wonderful. And my blood pressure is now normal, and my cholesterol is just fine. We won't discuss numbers, but it's just fine. Thank you. So it really is. And the benefit that I can tell you right now is that I feel good every day, all day. I go from 6 in the morning till probably midnight almost every day, and I have solid, good energy. And I'm not hungry anymore, and I'm not thinking about food, and I'm not worrying about food. And that is a wonderful benefit. Now, people ask what I eat every day. Okay, I will be the first to admit that I eat about 8 pounds of bacon a week. So, I don't recommend that everybody does.
How many strips a day?
A lot. About 8 usually, so 6 or 8. But that's all I eat until dinner time. And that just works for me because I live on the go all the time. I'm still doing some massage therapy, and I'm working for HEAL, so I'm on the go a lot. We eat out a lot. We travel a lot. We do all those things, so there's no excuse. You can do this plan and live an active life, most definitely. So, but I'm not going to take up any more time. I've just told a little bit about my story there, but I will tell you that I believe in this program, and I believe in Dr. Westman, because I am a living proof that you can get well by eating this way.
Well, do you believe in science?
I do.
Then
I always
it's
have.
science. It's scientifically proven. So you believe in science. That's why it works. Yeah. Okay. That's all.
Yeah. I like to say we believe in Dr. Westman too, so because he is the science.
Fair enough. Someone has to do the science, and it's not just me. But how many of you? Welcome, by the way. How many of you are here for the first time tonight? Yeah. So I got the sense that it's just about everybody. You might wonder why HEALcare. What is HEAL Clinics? Anyone can do a diet change, and we hope to help you advance down your path of diet change if that's what you want to do. But if you're on medication, especially diabetes or high blood pressure medicine, these medicines can become too strong very fast, and they can make you sick. And so after 8 years of clinical research and then 12 years of clinical practice at Duke, I can only see so many people. We decided to start a company that would help get people off the medications safely. So you can do this on your own, and it's just healthy eating. I hope to convince you of that. But if you're taking medication, and especially if you don't know what the medicines do, for heaven's sake, find someone who knows about it. And we're in this weird space where a lot of doctors don't know how to take away medicines. They only know how to prescribe medicines. And so we teach doctors and nurse practitioners and partners how to help people get off the medicines, which is a new concept to most doctors today, so even in our area. But welcome, and that's why HEAL is here. HEAL has graciously supported the live streaming, and this is available live stream at the HEAL Facebook site, HEAL Facebook site. So if you want someone to watch in, or if you want to watch, you can't make the meeting, please go to the HEAL Clinic's Facebook site, and you'll see this first Tuesday of the month, 6:30 to 8 or so. Welcome. And so how many of you have been doing this for more than a month? Raise your hand. Well, wow. And that overlaps with the first people who are here for the first time. How about those of you who've been eating this way for over a year? Raise your hand. Yeah. 2 years? Keep your hands up, I guess. 3 years? 4 years? 5 years? 6 years? 10 years? You and me.
Yeah. Thank God for you.
So, yeah, I started eating this way during our first research studies. I didn't have any dramatic weight. I didn't improve my A1C and do all these wonderful things that I help other people do. But it was through my patients doing this, doing something effective, that I was curious about whether it was safe. So I saw people doing this, and a lot of your doctors will be in this position of they see people doing it and they're wondering, is this safe? Well, for me, that was 20 years ago. And I established a research line to see whether it was safe or not. And it turns out that with Dr. Yancey at Duke and I, and now studies all over the world, say that this is actually a healthy way to eat. And it's therapeutic. It's even healthy if you have heart disease. It's even healthy if you, so cardiologists send me their patients. Cardiologists send me their patients, okay? So I know we were all taught to not eat fat, and fat on the arteries, fat in the food. It turns out that's not the case. So, but most doctors and dietitians were trained in the old way, and now we're training everyone in the new way. So I understand that causes a lot of confusion and a lot of resistance for you to get started. So what I would recommend is go to a clinical doctor, HEAL Clinic or Duke or someone locally, have them measure your labs, and then change the diet, and then follow up with the lab tests. How simple is that? So for me, it took a while to get comfortable with the idea of having people eat fat. How many of you at first were scared of eating fat? Be honest. Yeah. Okay, just about everyone. And it takes a little time to get used to that idea, but there's nothing like getting the blood test done. If you have diabetes, if you have high cholesterol, if you have high blood pressure, all of these things get better. Anyway, that's my story. I've been at Duke for now 28 years and have a clinic in the north side of Durham. Sadly, it's about a 6-month or so wait list to come in to see me. That's why we created HEAL clinics, to increase the availability and also to get other experts in. Jackie Eberstein is the lead director of the clinical training program, and she worked with Dr. Atkins for 30 years. So I roped her in to become part of the team. Dana Carpenter wrote some of the first low-carb cookbooks, so I roped in Dana Carpenter to be part of the HEAL team. So that's why the green screen is here behind us, but we don't have to talk about that anymore. We like to start with having newcomers and why you're here, have questions. Really, last month I remember there was a theme, while you're getting up the gumption to raise your hand, there was a theme kind of migraine. The migraine headaches going away on a keto, low carb, high fat, Atkins induction. It's really kind of all the same thing. And it was interesting, there were people who had had their migraines fixed, telling the people who wondered about migraines. And this is the kind of thing that's not happening in the research world. Connecting to people, sharing stories. fascinating. And so if you want to come up, say hello, ask a question, tell us why you're here. Yes, come on down.
I don't need to come up.
Oh, no, yes,
I will stand, so.
please. Well, then you won't be on camera, you know.
Oh, absolutely.
The camera.
Yeah, if I have to be up here.
So I'm a social scientist at a small college. I'm familiar with the way the research process works a little bit. And it seems like to me that I'm just wondering, why isn't there more of a rushing to this research, as it were? You know, why isn't you understand? Why isn't the mainstream community re-looking at the nutrition triangle, as it were? That's my question.
Okay. So, research scientists who started the diet at 2 p.m. today.
That's true.
Sorry, I had some inside information. Asking why doesn't the mainstream embrace this? Why doesn't my doctor know about this? Why does my grocery store clerk tell me not to do this? You know, it's pretty amazing. It's because we were all taught that it was bad, without any science behind it. So I would recommend to you, if you want the long story, and this was a very influential book for me, Gary Taubes, Taubes. How many of you have read Gary Taubes' Good Calories, Bad Calories? You would like this as a social scientist. It tells the story of the Gordian knot of social, political, industrial, medical wackoness. How do I say it? So it all started in a political subcommittee run by George McGovern, who was from, if you liked him for politics, well, he came from a wheat-producing state and thought, gosh, Minnesota. So, gosh, what if we create a guideline that had wheat in it? It would be really good for Minnesota. He was all for it. He had just been to Pritikin, which was popular at the time, a very low-fat, high-carb approach, but it was also low-calorie, which is the commonality of how all these things work, by the way. So at a political subcommittee, they decided we need to have a guideline, and the scientists said, well, okay, give us millions of dollars in 5 years, we'll come up with it. And you can watch this chilling piece on YouTube now, where it says, well, Mr. Scientist, we don't have time to wait. We need to act now. And so out of ignorance, really, with no science, this guideline was created. Have you ever heard this thing called the pyramid, food pyramid? No, who's heard of the food pyramid? So everyone. So in this book, Good Calories, Bad Calories, he gets into these details, and the science never proved that the low-fat diet was good. Never did. It's actually scandalous. And your mainstream doctors don't know about it. Let me go to another. Science has done incorporating new knowledge. So if you have a theory and it doesn't apply here, you make a new theory so that you can incorporate something new into your theory. This isn't done in the diet world. There's been ignoring, it's kind of a tribal, well, if you're not a vegetarian, we don't look at that research, for example. Or if you're not a meat eater, we don't look at vegetarian. Well, we do look at vegetarian. So it was kind of the army of the low fat. It's like an army, soldiers. And yeah, it's wacko, it's crazy. Now, the good news, Nutrition Coalition, nutritioncoalition.com. If you don't like Gary Taubes' book, it's a little too dry. It is pretty sciencey. Nina Teicholz, another investigative journalist, wrote The Big Fat Surprise. And it's the story of the same story, but brought up to modern day, including the low-carb science. And so she's actually created a nonprofit to help move the guideline, to force the guideline to look at the new science. And so just in the last year, Nina Teicholz and the Nutrition Coalition used $1 million from a donor to have the government create a law. It took a senator writing a law to make the guideline panel be evidence-based, just in this last year. Wow. So it's really not scientific. And doctors follow the guidelines. Their pack mentality. In fact, I didn't want to say high fat, eat high fat, until a certain amount of science was there. So yeah, I know it's confusing, but it seems to me that we're in the period of time where it's like we have different car companies saying, buy my car, and theirs doesn't work. Oh, wait a minute, who does it? The Ford dealer say a VW doesn't work? I mean, no, they say it's not as safe and all that, but so when you see movies that say something doesn't work when there's all this science, it's more the promoting of their own individual stance than being a scientist open to the idea that there are a lot of ways to do it. But yeah, wow, that's a tough, I had to really go on and on about that one, sorry. But the short answer is there's plenty of science behind this, it just hasn't been recognized. That's what I meant to say.
There you go.
Please, yeah. Come on down, oh please.
Well, can you stand up at least for us so we can?
Yeah. I was just wondering if you cared to comment about Tim Noakes and the court case that he's involved in, and if you think that that's going to have any impact on the United States and our approach to nutrition.
Yeah. So the question is, what about Prof. Noakes, Tim Noakes? Has anyone heard of Tim Noakes? So, fifth, fourth, third, yeah. So Tim Noakes is an exercise researcher in Cape Town, South Africa. He has this great 10-minute video. You can look online. It's called The Skinny on Fat. He's looking into the camera and tells the story of how he was getting a little portly. He's a marathon runner, exercise researcher, and that he was going to a meeting. This email came across saying that he could lose 20 pounds in 2 weeks, and he said, oh, I can't believe this, but Steve Phinney is one of the authors. And he knew Steve Phinney. Well, of course, I'm one of the authors, but he didn't know me. He knew Steve Phinney and said, this is a real scientist. Either he's sold out, or maybe it's true that this could actually work. So like any good scientist, he tries it himself first. And I'm afraid, like most doctors, they have to try it themselves first. He tries it out. He loses 20 pounds, runs like he hasn't run in 10 years, and actually he wanted to go to a meeting and look good. He even says that in the video, and that's a great reason to do it. But so he started looking into it, and so in all earnestness, he wrote a book called The Real Meal Revolution. It turned the country of South Africa upside down in terms of the availability of low-carb foods. The Real Meal Revolution was a book he wrote, and he started tweeting. It's the new world of tweets, isn't it? Some dietitian wrote in saying, what do babies eat? Tweeted, and he tweeted back, well, it's okay to wean real baby onto real food. Like after the baby has had mother's milk, it can have real food. Well, that dietitian turned him in for giving advice for a tweet on a baby. So when you turn in somebody, the organization, so it wasn't the patient, important point, but there's been no patient who has successfully had a lawsuit against a doctor who prescribes this. So I don't think it's going to have any effect in the U.S. That's the long, because it's always an organization who feels threatened by something. In this case, it was the doctor tweeting, but what happened is they went to a professional standards board, and they called him before it. And Prof. Noakes, good soul that he is, who likes to win. His background is in competitive sports. Took this as a real game to play and to win. Brought all of the data, all the evidence, brought in world experts to a conference in Cape Town, South Africa, and he won the case. But it took a year and a half or 2 years, a lot of money, and he wrote a book about it. So he wrote a book called The Lore of Nutrition, Marika Sobros and Tim Noakes have this book. You can read it in there. It has a story along those lines. So Tim Noakes now is free and clear of any kind of issue there. He's consulting now around the world. Has now also a video training program for doctors who want to learn how to do this, and it's based in South Africa, and I did a video for his program there. Gary Fetke, who was an orthopedic surgeon who got tired of doing amputations on people with diabetes, started telling his patients not to eat sugar because it raises the blood sugar and it worsens the diabetes, and it would make it so he wouldn't have to chop off legs so much. Got turned in Australia to the Professional Standards Board and got in trouble, and the outcome there is that he's censored, so he can't talk about nutrition. Now, these are relatively small countries. South Africa, I don't know how many million. It's probably like the environment, like New York City. Australia is relatively small in terms of population, and it hasn't happened in the U.S. And I don't think it will, because the science here is so strong, and there's also now a base of researchers and scientists and actually lawyers ready to dive in, and a set of donors behind the scene who've kind of said, you know, if you need some legal funds, of course, it might just be talk, but so what I hope will happen in the U.S. is that guidelines will start to change, and there was a meeting just in San Diego this last week to bring together scientists and researchers who use the low-carb diet and to put together a professional standards guideline. And so if you behave in this way, according to the science here that's assembled, then you would be protected from some frivolous, you know, doctor, you talked about food. Well, I mean, food is the most important thing to talk about, and I want to start the medical school. The first day, the dean gets up and says, food is the most important thing, and you're going to learn nutrition first in a medical school. And most medical students get about a day of nutrition, or a week. So that's another reason why there's no foundation for doctors to know how to ferret out any better than you. They'll watch, I get this all the time, how will I get vitamin C if I don't have orange juice? Well, now, who planted that in your mind? The orange juice makers. So actually, the Inuit who had no orange juice never had a vitamin C deficiency. So anyway, so I think Prof. Noakes, we call out to him for being a hero in this world. And the lore of nutrition he wrote the lore of running, I think like 30 years ago, told everyone to eat carbs before running, and now in the movie Serial Killers, he ripped out the chapter and said, I was wrong, you shouldn't carb load for running, you should not eat carbs. And now, just this last week, I saw an hour-long presentation by Zach Bitter, who holds the world record for the 100-mile race. Can you imagine someone runs 100 miles and it's in the countryside? So, and he's a low-carb guy. So the movie Serial Killers subtitle is called Run on Fat. So what's becoming clear to me is that you can run your body on carbs, you can run your body on fat. Now, protein's non-negotiable, you have to have protein. But you can choose what you run your body on by choosing what you eat. If you want to run on carbs, eat carbs. It's fine, you know. You can actually do pretty well. But if you want to run on fat, eat fat and not carbs, and then your body will run on fat, and it will actually wake up to the fact that you have fat on your body and start burning it first. And that's why, how many of you have noticed starting a keto or low-carb diet that your hunger went away pretty quickly? Raise your hand. So I went to research conferences, and people told me there's no data that says hunger goes away. I'm like, but I went to a group like this, and 100 people raise it. That's not data. It doesn't count. That's not research. It's not in a peer-reviewed journal, you know. So that gets to the world is changing. More and more doctors are open to the idea of treating metabolic syndrome, which means the low HDL, the high triglyceride, even treating heart disease with this kind of approach. It's just a different way to do it. It's not wrong, it's just different. And even has anyone heard of the group Type 1 Grit? These are people with type 1 diabetes or parents of children with type 1 diabetes. So it's spelled out TYPEONEGRIT, type 1 Grit. Over 2,000 members doing keto with type 1. One of our endocrine fellows at Duke wanted a project, and so we said, why don't you survey the type 1 gritters? They call them gritters. And so she did, and got all of this self-reported information from kids mainly who cut the carbs down. They're on much less insulin. They still need insulin if they have type 1 diabetes, but they have much fewer blood sugar problems, going way low. And that's the terrible worry of the parent, that the blood sugar is going to go too low and the child doesn't wake up. So David Ludwig at Harvard got wind of this and said, let's redo it, and actually I'll pitch in money and we'll talk to the doctors to validate the self-report of the people in the survey of type 1 grit Facebook group. That journal, Pediatrics, the big journal Pediatrics, published that study this spring. And the furor of the, I can't believe you published a Facebook survey in this established journal. Well, David Ludwig, bless his heart, in a good way, will not ever let that go without some good retort in a scientific way. So yes, the world can change by Facebook groups. The world can change by small groups like this, comparing notes, because no one else is doing it. And so what we hope with that Facebook group survey is that there will be more scientists wanting to do these kinds of studies. So anyway, that was the couple things I'd heard in questions walking around. That, yeah, it's okay to do this with heart disease. The longest study we have is out 2 years, and the carotid thickness went down. Now, these weren't really seriously ill people, but it just shows that you can, with weight loss, you're changing the diet, getting rid of the junk foods. There were actually 3 arms in that study, and they all improved, but low carb was one of them. So a lot of new science, and especially diabetes. A big study this last spring by Sarah Hallberg and that group. Has anyone seen Sarah Hallberg on her TEDx talk, firing up people about treating diabetes? It's classic. She starts out, I have the best job on earth as a doctor, because she helps people get better. It's a great video if you, it's Sarah Hallberg's TEDx talk. So their study came out, just about everyone who was on insulin was taken off insulin over a year, and many, I've heard tonight, some of you are already off insulin in much shorter time than that. So be careful, check the insulin or check the blood sugar levels, of course, before you ever take insulin. So the research is coming around, but in a different world that I lived in as an evidence-based medicine doctor, I'm pretty spoiled, and I would say, well, that's all okay, but it doesn't convince me yet. So I understand that. The mainstream is pretty spoiled because we have a pharma-based research world. So in fact, to do a randomized controlled trial is very expensive. And others have written about this, that the pharmaceutical industry actually raised the bar to randomized controlled trials, and we won't give credence to anything else because they have a lot of money. And so that means a lifestyle change that actually just takes away things from people, doesn't sell anything, has a difficult time getting the money together to do those kinds of studies. And hopefully that'll change. But anyway, so new folks want to come down and say why you're here? Old folks? I mean, seasoned folks? Yeah, okay.
This is my second time to be on this. I was on the Atkins years ago. I lost about 90 pounds, and I am diabetic. I was able to get off of my insulin, my medications, and all that. Felt great. Well, over the years, I got off of it. This past January, I started my
makes it taste better. A spoonful of sugar makes the medicine. I want to rewrite that song, A Spoonful of Splenda.
If I've read it in any of y'all's posts or any of your programs, I guess it just went over my head because this was an moment last week, you know. And I thought, how many other people look at what they're taking, their medications? You know, but I did not think about it. And I'm so excited, but I still kept the 30 pounds off even though I was getting the extra 11.
And how's the diabetes doing?
It's down. I've gotten it down last week. I'm
Great.
at a much better level. I'm waking up now with 83 instead of 148.
Great. Normal blood sugars.
You know, and this has been this past week, and I'm taking on 2 more pounds.
Great.
So
Yeah,
I
so
just want everybody
um,
Okay, I'm still taking my iron, but I found vitamin C without the sugar in it. My anemia is getting better. I'm doing this rather than get an infusion of iron. This was the cheap way out because mine was so low. So it is getting much better. Right, right. And I couldn't figure out why I wasn't feeling better. I know. Yeah, right. Wow.
so thank you. Now, just as put on my internal medicine hat, if you be sure to look for reasons why you might have iron deficiency anemia, if that's what it is.
And they are.
Sounds like you're gonna buy
Trying to figure it out, what's
you
going
know,
on with it. So,
yeah, good. So don't just treat it. Make sure there's not an underlying reason for it. The diet's not going to do that.
and I've had a lot of tests too.
But that's another interesting thing. So a couple. Thank you. You have to consider anything that's going into your mouth or being absorbed, or I guess technically even over the skin, that might be absorbed as something potentially that might affect the blood sugars or the ketone levels. And I'll sit down in my class. I do an hour-long class. You can watch an older version of it on YouTube called the white coat video, because I'm sitting with a white coat giving the class. It's a younger me, and I have better jokes now, I have to say. There's a better video if you get into the HEALcare system that you can watch, and then you can actually get a one-on-one group session if you get through the Duke Clinic. But what I'll say is you have to be careful with anything that you put in your mouth. I remember one fellow came in, I think I have this in the white coat video, where he got up from the table, I heard this it was Tic Tacs. And now he hadn't written it on his form what he was eating, and he was complaining it's not working, and it turned out that he was having 2 boxes of Tic Tacs a day, which calculated out, that's enough to stop the weight loss in that person. So if you're troubleshooting, kind of the big theme here, check ketones. I'll use ketone measurement, even urine, blood, or breath, they're all about the same. And that will tell you if you're getting too many carbs. And that would have picked up I'm getting too many carbs, what am I eating? A vitamin. Or before you put anything in your mouth, look on the label and make sure that there's no carb or very low carbs in it. But I would expect even years later for the low-carb diet to work well, fix diabetes or reverse diabetes, we say, but it might not work as fast. So the younger you are, the faster it works. And if you do it the second time, you're never younger. You're always a little older. So don't. I have people complain, well, I used to do this, I lost all this weight, and now well, sorry about that. Yeah, well, great. I'm glad you're happy. Yeah.
A follow-on to that, this is my mom. I asked you a couple months ago about having cramps, and you suggested that I take a teaspoon of milk of magnesia at night. And I remember you said,
For a week.
Yeah, hold your nose so it doesn't, get it down. I didn't buy the nasty tasting one. I bought the cherry flavored.
It has sugar in it. Was it 3 grams?
I don't see the measurement. I just saw the
Yeah.
ingredients.
Yeah, so the flavored Milk and Mag has some sugar in it.
So
Yeah.
another one to look for.
Yeah, well, any food or supplement or all, but you know, it's a matter of the amount in milligrams, not micrograms or picograms. Or I have some people who obsess about but it says sugar on here, and well, but it says 0 grams of total sugar, so it's a very low amount. So that's probably going to be okay if the amount is very, very low. It's not like it's a poison. You know, you've been eating it all your life. It's just a slow toxin that builds up. If you haven't read the book, The Case Against Sugar by Gary Taubes, came out last year. It's a great one as well. Case Against Sugar. Yeah. There's a question on the way back.
I'm about 5 weeks in my primary care. Has already cut my blood sugar medicine down to half. I'm thrilled with that. I'm loving this so far. But would you speak a little about the anti-inflammatory response that keto has on the body? Is that something too that can correct?
Yeah. So she's about 5 weeks into it. Blood pressure medicine is in half by her doctor. And can I comment on the anti-inflammatory effects? Yeah. So probably 2 things that lead to the anti-inflammatory effects of a low-carb diet. The first thing is you're not having the carbs that are pro-inflammatory. So you're taking away things that cause inflammation. The second thing is that ketones themselves, when they present themselves, are anti-inflammatory. And that's a new finding just in the last year, where ketones are now kind of thought of as this kind of drug-like effect that has an anti-inflammatory effect. So there are really 2 things. I've kind of been dragging my feet thinking it's just that you're not eating carbs. It's just that you're not eating carbs. But now the research being done says having some ketones around can actually be anti-inflammatory. Now the dose, we don't know. This is being worked out now in clinical studies where people are being given ketones to drink. And I saw a recent paper or presentation where you can track the eyes of people. And if you have a disease called Parkinson's disease, there's kind of a tremor in the eyes when you follow something. And so with this level of degree of accuracy, after drinking ketones, the eyeball was going across much straighter than before. Now it's a transient effect currently, but we're at that stage where the mere fact that it's able to change something like that is pretty huge. So yeah, there's an anti-inflammatory effect of cutting carbs and maybe of having more ketones around. And of course, if you didn't hear the study from last summer, middle-aged mice were put on a keto diet compared to a regular chow diet, and they lived 13% longer. This is one of the first studies looking at how long animals and mice live. Worms, called C. elegans, live longer if they have low insulin levels. And what causes insulin to go up? Carbs. So that, so as we don't have a human study yet, although the anti-aging doctors are all over low carb. I used to speak at those meetings regularly, and they're into this in a big way. Most of them are in Florida, the anti-aging doctors. Go figure. But, yeah, question.
I'll go ahead and come up front here.
Yeah, come on now.
Thank you. Great to meet you. Hi, everybody. My name's Dan, and I have an eating problem. No, wait a minute, wrong meeting. In the last couple of months, I have lost about 20 pounds doing a low-carb, low-fat diet, and now I'm hearing things that go against the low-fat part. And I'm worried about my cardiac health. I like the idea, I want the mental clarity, and I want the good health, but I don't have the best health now, so that I'm concerned that if I jump into this diet and start eating all that bacon over there, that I'm going to be the next guy on the stretcher. And I hear you saying that the evidence doesn't support that way of thinking, but it's really hard to just step out of what I've learned for 50-something years and believe that. So how do I learn, or how do I know that I'm not going to fill my arteries with fat and have a heart attack? That's really my main question. And a follow-up, a second part to that would be, what vitamin supplements would you recommend for general use, or if any?
That's the easy question. So you don't go yet. So my approach is, I heard this question earlier too, is to be minimalist on the vitamin supplementation. To multivitamin maximum, and then if you have a problem like muscle cramps, constipation, add in electrolyte like magnesium, potassium, sodium, things like that. Some other doctors have the approach of, I'm going to treat everyone and give vitamins, salt, magnesium, potassium to everyone because 10% have a problem, and then I get 100% of the dollar sales from those who are buying the products. So my stance might change as I start selling product. I'm joking. But it's just, you treat everyone because 10% of people have an issue. I tend to wait, and so I don't prescribe vitamins or recommend them at first. But you hear about electrolytes, basically it's sodium, salt, it's potassium, and magnesium. And you can take those, a lot of people do that up front anyway. It just, I don't think there's any harm to that. Now, did you ever see the movie Sleeper by Woody Allen? Anyone see the movie Sleeper? Woody Allen made this movie, and it's a common thing to just flip everything upside down in comedy, And so it was a movie back in the 80s, and this guy went to sleep for a couple hundred years, and he woke up, and it turned out it was Woody Allen who was the person in the movie, and they told him, well, you probably still think bean sprouts are good for you. Oh yes, they're good. And they were, that's the old news. Now we know that cheeseburgers are great for you and cholesterol is good. And so you're going to have to go to sleep for a couple hundred years for the science to turn around. And I know it's tough. I help people through this kind of emotional reaction. And in fact, well-intentioned doctors who care about you and you care about them and you like them and they treat you for so long may flatly be wrong, or at least be unaware that there's another way to go about it. So I'm at that point where you measure everything. You measure the blood, you measure the arteries, you measure the calcium score. There's a new book by Jeff Gerber and Ivor Cummins, who's an engineer in the UK. And in that book, they show you how you can actually measure the coronary score, the carotid arteries, the aorta. In our area, you can get a company called LifeScan to do these for you for $100, something like that. So it's not like I'm putting my head in the sand. I'm saying, do this and measure everything. So things aren't going to happen like that. And that I actually have a difficult time with doctors who instill fear into you. In fact, the more fear introduced, the more fear is being used, the less evidence there is. Does that make sense? So the more, if you don't take that statin, you're gonna die. It's like, well, come on. It's not like you're on the edge of a cliff and you're gonna fall over like this, right? So, and yet you're all very serious. How can this doctor say this? Because if you don't take a statin for a day, you're not gonna die. Okay? It's a long-term effect if there is one. And so, yeah, I understand. So part of what the clinical process is one-on-one, I don't go off like this. I talk reasonably and explain that I've been doing this for a long time, and here are the studies, and other researchers have done the studies this far. And so it's not conclusive that you might actually get worse.
Do you get people that can get off of their statins and their blood pressure medicine on this diet?
Absolutely,
We have a lot of evidence.
Oh, yeah.
'Cause I'm on both and I hate them both.
Yeah.
I really do.
Absolutely.
Good.
I was talking to Dr. Will Yancey today about this, who's director of the Duke Diet and Fitness Center. The idea of a statin, someone being on it, you come in, you're on it, it's not a scientific decision that I'm making, it's a political one. So I gauge how strongly your other doctor is holding on to this prescription. Because the only time I've ever been, really just an email, wasn't to my face, and this is years ago, had a email, why did you stop the statin on my patient? And well, it's because the patient asked me about it and wanted to go off it, but she was too intimidated to ask the other doctor about it. So I got in the middle, and it might be called meddling, I suppose, but I said, go off the statin, we'll measure it again in 3 months. Well, she went and saw the other doctor in the intervening time. And why aren't you taking it? And so anyway, I understand there's all this emotion about it, but part of it is because the kind of this science behind it is not all that solid, and it's getting whittled away. But now what I hear is other doctors are saying, well, yeah, okay, you don't have heart disease, it's just an LDL of this. Don't tell me, but it's okay if you don't take the statin. Because then it's not their advice for you not to take it, so they don't get in trouble when it comes to a guideline or something like that. But some guideline or even your extra pay might be gauged by what percent of your patients are taking a statin drug. That's worth asking the doctor, is do you get extra benefit incentive, or is there some clinical criteria for your percentage of patients to be on statins? And that you'll say yes or no. But so yeah, you can get off those things, and great start.
Great.
Right. You feeling well?
I'm doing better than I've been in a while, and I've got my first appointment tomorrow with one of the doctors at your practice.
Fantastic.
Braxton, I think his name is, something like that.
Great. No, that's not mine, but that's okay.
It's somebody from the same place as you.
Okay. So if you came back to me, you're a month into it, I would ask, are you having any hunger?
No,
Great,
that's
yeah,
not
okay.
an issue. Well, late night. That's where it gets tough. I found that as I start counting calories, I can go through the day.
Count what?
Counting. Apparently, I'm saying a bad word around here. I'm here for education.
I don't know what that means. Count.
I've been counting calories to keep my weight down, and it's served me.
Okay.
It served me. Got a whole lot of people think I'm doing wrong. Look, here's what I'll say. In 2 months, I've lost 21 pounds.
Can't argue with that.
But I also have to add, I feel like I'm on Mr. Toad's wild ride. I don't know if I'm getting the right nutrition. I don't know if I'm getting the right vitamins. I don't know any of that. And that's why I'm looking for guidance.
Who did you learn from?
Google.
Yeah, no, it's important. I'll ask, well, who started you out? What information? If you come in through now the kind of wacko keto folks who say you need to have this, and I've even had someone say, well, it wasn't grass-fed beef, so I ate the bun. Which is like, yeah, because it wasn't clear what the relative importance of things was. So how you learn about it, the New Atkins for New You is a very accessible read. Of course, you have to read the whole book. The support groups in my clinic uses a very short clinic handout, and how you learn it matters. But when you're eating foods to keep the carbs under 20, you're mainly eating meat, poultry, fish and shellfish, and eggs to fullness, and then a cup of non-starchy veggies, a fistful, and 2 cups of leafy greens. This is maximum for the day, and that's going to keep the hunger down, and you should automatically eat fewer calories without counting them. So that's when everything's working right. You're not on a medicine, you're not social eating, you're not eating because your mother tells you have to. These are all common things I hear. Then you really don't have to count calories, although you can. So take away all that laughter and all other. It makes it a little more complicated if you do, but it does keep people on track sometimes to log things.
I certainly learned a lot from just seeing, and after a while you kind of intuitively know about what the caloric intake is going to be because you've read the charts for a while and you start to see the relationships.
Yeah, but so I like that weird metaphors. Do you think a wolf or a lion out in the wild is worried about the calories they're eating?
I would hope not.
Yeah, I hope not. Of course not.
They eat
right?
They eat meat.
So if you have a relative, you're not, well, unless they're in one of the lines from the Magic Pill movie was, only humans and animals fed by humans get obese. That's a great line. Think about that. So when the lion's in the zoo and they get fed all the time, they get obese and get diabetes. But out in the wild, they're not worrying about calories, they're playing, they're eating once a week, these lions. So I think what will happen over time is you'll just get used to the set of foods. Life will get busy. You don't have to write these things down. Just stay to the meat, fish, and shellfish, poultry, and eggs mainly. A little bit of vegetables, leafy greens.
Sounds
Well
good.
done. I'm not sure who you're going to see tomorrow, but that's okay.
My wife does.
Okay. Thank you so much.
As I leave, I'm going to sit asking you this one question. Are there any frozen meals that you can endorse?
Well, in general, are there any frozen meals?
Frozen meals,
Yeah.
Quick, easy.
So in my teaching that I learned, which actually came from Jackie Eberstein and Dr. Atkins, we studied their method down here at Duke and then published those papers. We mainly want people to eat real food. There are some frozen meals, and you look at the total carbs. And I would say, in a pinch, if you have some here and there, great. So there's some Atkins nutritionals products that I've seen that are down to 8 carbs per meal. And some Atkins frozen meals are like 20 carbs per meal. So there are a lot of ways to have quick meals without being frozen. How about 5 quick things?
Well, my favorite frozen meal is easy, and I also learned that you can buy high-fat ground beef. So what is it, the 23% fat? 27. Right? Which is the cheap 27, which is cheaper than the stuff we've been buying because it was lame. Cut it up into, 8-ounce, 6-ounce patties. And when I have a long day and I don't want to, thank God I'm married to a gourmet who supports my way of eating. But on the days we don't, there's my frozen meal. I cook 2 of those up. I put some Parmesan cheese in it, maybe some seasoning, and life is good.
Other quick low-carb things?
Real good, real food, that company.
Okay.
Okay. There is one company out there that does have a frozen meal. Judy, I know you've tried them. It's real good, real food. And they are 4 total carbs per meal. It's either a little pizza, and it's a chicken crust pizza. Then they also have a chicken tortilla with enchiladas. They have chicken enchiladas, beef enchiladas, cheese enchiladas.
So it's called Real Good Food.
Yeah.
.com.
Real food, real good.
Real good food.
Real food, real good. Yes. Real food, real good.
So for those of you who see
Online. Kroger, I believe, carries them sometimes, and Walmart does too occasionally, the pizzas.
So these kinds of things, this is what the Facebook group was designed for. So getting on Facebook, sharing this information, because you might not have a Publix. You might not have this. You might have a, I got tired. Well, no, it was impossible for me to know. 10 people come through, there are 10 different stores, 10 different towns. So we teach the total carbs, watch that. And Real Good Food Pizza is pretty cool. Now, for those of you who are on the Facebook group, Kyle, right? You want to come down and say hi? Put your, so I have to say I've been really trying to be on the Facebook, the Low Carb Support Group by Dr. Eric Westman. If you haven't been there, sit down because you'll see me pop up there. Just because there are so many other Facebook groups, and we wanted to bring in the HEAL group. And thank you so much for kind of policing the group a little bit. But it's not policing; it's just supporting, asking, and answering questions just like this. Where do I get foods? How do I keep things? So what's new? Say hi. And so I want to thank Kyle for his work on the support group.
So Dr. Weston's my hero. When I showed up at my anniversary, it was last June 8th, I came in with a 44 waist. I'd been obese my whole life. And it really was, it's not like diabetes type 1 or 2 that I'm fighting. It was just, I was the kid who went to the Husky section in high school. So remember when that was where you go shovel? Maybe you don't, but I did. I was a 40 waist in high school. So I just want to first say, most importantly, that I love this way of eating. The Facebook group is fantastic because you could ask all these kinds of questions. I'm the kind of guy that hey, I'm going to get all my lungs out tomorrow. Will Keto help me? And that makes me a little nervous when I see those posts. So I might privately reach out to the poster and say, you really want to get with your doctor on that. But most important.
So if there's a medical concern, you refer to your doctor.
Yeah, well,
I was just speaking up a little more.
This diet works great,
but it's not a unicorn, right? I mean, we still need doctors. And sometimes I see people get into magical thinking, and that's when I get worried. So it's fantastic. My knees don't hurt anymore.
I was thinking it's not a unicorn. It's beautiful, has a horn. No.
Sparkles.
Sorry, doctor. But so anyhow, yeah, kudos.
Now, did you do some running?
Yeah, well, I've dramatically increased my exercise routine. It was difficult before going to Dr. Westman because my knees always hurt. And now I basically run like 20 to 30 miles a week. I enjoy it. I do it. I'm not fast. I don't care because that's my time. I'm very engaged with my family, so it's nice to have a couple hours out where it's just me. And because I'm fat adapted, I'm able to. You don't see me with the gel packs, which is not unusual. I might have like a saline shot of salt in the before my run. Probably add magnesium to it now. But yeah, it's great. Being fat adapted, if I miss a meal, it's no big whoop.
Or being a fat burner?
Fat burner.
Trying to work on the right language,
What
you know.
did I say?
A fat burner. Being fat
yeah.
adapted, fat.
Yeah, so I'm from 44 to 38, so my body's still consuming itself, which is fantastic, especially at my age. So,
Thank you. Please.
Can you address epilepsy and Alzheimer's and the benefits of the keto?
So what about epilepsy and Alzheimer's, or just the brain in general, right? There's an old wrong belief that the brain needs carbohydrates and glucose, but it actually doesn't. And in fact, running on ketones may be beneficial. 100 years ago, there was a diet called the ketogenic diet. It was started 100 years ago and used for children with epilepsy. And so there's a subgroup of, when you look at all children with epilepsy, I think about 2/3 get better. I mean, not totally, but some improvement. And then there's a subgroup of about 5% where it's totally gone. The epilepsy overnight is gone. And we now know with recent research that these children have a problem taking sugar into the brain. So they need ketones. If they don't have ketones, they get epilepsy. So you know how you turn ketones off in a baby and a child? Feed them sugar. So if you want to create epilepsy in a child that can't use sugar in the brain, give them sugar. I'm trying to make this confusing for you. Because for the longest time, nobody has thought about this. Nobody, meaning even medical researchers, that you might run the brain, the muscles, other parts of the body on fat and actually improve things. So there are types of childhood epilepsy, even adult epilepsy, that will be improved or actually fixed, which is pretty incredible. Alzheimer's is a little less clear. And the latest research on Alzheimer's is that it starts 20 years before there's any symptom. So you don't want to wait until you're starting to have memory loss. You want to do something now. And the experts agree that the thing that starts this all out is called insulin resistance. Have you heard of that before? Many of you have had your insulin resistance fixed by stopping eating carbohydrates. So either the way to fix insulin resistance is to lower the calories or lower the carbs and lower the calories. And so there's an interesting book, and we had Amy Berger, the author, here at a couple times before, called The Alzheimer's Antidote. And in there, the argument is pretty well written and argued that you should cut the carbohydrates out because Alzheimer's appears to be diabetes of the brain, meaning it's not functioning normally, and it's all the same issue that has to do with carbs in the food. So, but Alzheimer's and cancer are in this space of, there's a lot of interest. You'll hear a lot of internet chatter about it, but the science has to be at a higher level before I'm going to sign off on it. That's just where my space, where I am in this research world. So I review papers for for science journals to make sure that they're sound and all that. But the fact that there's interest in using a keto diet for cancer and Alzheimer's is really pretty cool, because it wasn't so long ago that everyone said it was going to kill you, right? I mean, within all of our lifetimes. So, but I would now the argument has been made, and Amy Berger makes it in her book, that why wouldn't you try a keto diet if you had Alzheimer's or pre-Alzheimer's? What's to lose? And so I'll have people come to me who have cancer, who have some other disease, and I'll help them do a keto diet, but I'll say, I can't guarantee, I can't even, in fact, it might even make it worse. I don't know. But if someone really wants to try it, my balance is that I think it's going to do more good than harm, but I don't know for sure. But that's, again, I just think this is healthy eating. I mean, nobody was designed to eat all the sugar and starch that we've had available. I don't think our bodies were designed for that. So thanks. Yeah. Some nerve, the brain's just a big nerve. When the nerves come out, peripheral neuropathy can get better, even when it's from diabetes. And so if diabetes is affecting the nerves and you fix the diabetes, the nerve problem can get better. But don't expect your doctor to know this, because they've never seen it. And like any good doctor, if they've never seen it, then it can't happen, right? I mean, like any professional, unless you see other research or other things happen, you're not going to believe it. Hang on, just Tammy, did you want to come on up? Thank you, Tammy. For our new,
I think most people know me. I do. I have. We've decided, Amber and I, that each month, what we're going to do is have one success story to help you new people. But I also want to remind everybody, the new people, that September the 22nd in Roxborough, Dr. Westman and I, Heal and Adapt are having a huge conference. It's going to be Dr. Westman, Amy Berger, that he just talked about. So you guys want to hear more from her, she'll be there. Christy Sullivan, Cooking Keto with Christy. Everybody loves her. Day by Day Living, she'll be there. And Casey Durango, we go Keto with Casey. She'll be there, and it starts at 9 o'clock. It's September 22nd. You can get the information off of my website. That's Carson County Low-Carb Support Group, or our support group, the Low-Carb Support Group by Dr. Eric Westman, or even Hill Clinics or Adapt. So if you guys really want to come, it's $40. We're going to have a low-carb, great lunch. Dr. Westman himself is going to teach a class between 3:30 and 4:30. So if you stay, it's over with at 3:30, but we're going to do a class, and that's very rare that he does that. So we would love to have you guys come to that. But my success story this month, come on, Lona, is Lona Lockhart. And I met Lona about a year ago. She came maybe 2 years now, right?
15 months.
15 months. See, she's got it down. So she was like me. She had fibromyalgia, very bad, to the point where she was on medications, pain pills, couldn't get out. She had a motorcycle, couldn't ride her motorcycle. So she heard my story at one of my support meetings, because I'm here and in Roxborough. And I'll let her tell you her story, but she's now one of my leaders, as well as Mark DeLuck. He's here too. He's one of my business partners. But she's one of my top leaders, and I wanted her to tell you her story. And if you'd like to be a success story, send it to me or to Amber, and we'll feature you each month. Does that sound good?
fantastic. Thank you.
So Lona, tell your story.
Well, I gotta tell Dr. Westman first that.
Speak up real loud.
Okay, I've gotta tell Dr. Westman first that I Googled him. So, but anyway,
Wait, was that weird, or? A lot of people do that.
well, I Googled you and I found you through Googling. you
Okay,
know.
got it.
So that's how I found out about the keto diet, through Casey Spain Durango. And I actually my first meeting was in June. I started the diet in May of 2017. And my first support group meeting was here with Dr. Westman. I was at that meeting. And in the next week, I was at Tammy's support group meeting. I found out that we had a support group meeting in our area. And I just really love this way of eating. I feel like it not only saved my life, it gave me life. my husband and I enjoy riding the motorcycles, and it hurt to get on that thing with all that extra weight. Well, with the first 15 pounds I lost, the knee pain was gone. And when I sat back on that motorcycle, my husband said, "Lona, what's wrong?" And I said, "It didn't hurt," you know. So that's the number one thing. Within 15 pounds, my fibromyalgia pain was gone, the inflammation was gone, the mental clarity came. Like say, you know, you have that brain fog. Anybody else have brain fog? That went away totally. I feel better than I have felt in years. In 7 months, I lost 70 pounds. Hypothyroidism, so I take Synthroid, but with a sluggish thyroid, I lost 70 pounds in 7 months. So I think that's pretty good. And it's like I said, I just feel so good off of all prescription meds except for Synthroid, and my dosage on that has went a little down. But I am so thankful that, and I just want to say, I don't know if I'm going to say this right or not, but the more I learn about keto, the more I know that I'm doing the right thing for me. My family's got on board with it. It's just been, my daughter went to the doctor. They told her she needed to lose some weight, and could she find a coach? And she says, "Well, my mom just lost 60 pounds doing keto, and they said that's the best diet you can get on for this." So I've been coaching my daughter. My son-in-law is on board. My husband saw how much better I was feeling, and he's on board too. And even my beanpole son that I called him Beanpole because he's so skinny, and I was concerned about him not eating enough. And he said, "Well, Mama, I want to be healthy too. I want to eat healthy too." So he eats what we eat. And like I say, I just love this way of eating. What I see people doing and watching and reading is that people try to make this too hard. It's not hard. He's done the science. All we need to do is follow the plan, right?
Keep it simple.
Keep it simple. That's our motto. Keep it super simple. And that's what we tell folks. Keep it super simple. When you're beginning, you know, let's like say, do your meat, do your half cup of vegetable, cook, but follow the plan as it was written. Can't think of something else. It was something else I wanted to show. Oh, when you think about eating sugar, and this is my line that I stole from somebody, but I can't remember who I stole it from, but nothing tastes as good as being pain-free feels. And anytime, don't cheat, in any time that you know, think about that. Nothing tastes as good as being pain-free feels. And I even, a little tag on to a success story is my brother saw how well I was doing. So he started asking me questions, and he's on diabetic medicine. He's, you know, anyway, he needs a lot of work. And but he started the diet, and his AC1 is down, the lowest that it's been in 16 years. He went under, he's like 5.8 now. So that's a good, it's gone down. So he's doing great. So my family's getting on board with this. And I really appreciate the work you've done. I appreciate you taking and doing the science so I can do the plan. Tammy and my support group, Person County Low-Carb and the Keto Shack folks, they all help us, and Keto Rocks. So there's a lot of good information out there. And one thing that I would like to tell you, though, is be careful about what you read. I like to watch what Dr. Westman puts out, Dr. Ken Berry, I believe. I like that man, and I never knew him until I watched Dr. Westman interview him, and he just tells it like it is. And so, but you be careful. He tells it like it is, but I really enjoy watching him. So if you get to watch him do that, I even bought his book, which your doctor won't tell you or doesn't tell you, and I've been reading that. But I'm interested, like I said earlier, the more I learn about keto, the more I know that I'm doing what is right for me. I watched my mom die with Alzheimer's, and if I can do anything to slow that down, because I know I've got a 50-50 chance of that. So if I can do anything to slow that down, I will. So, okay.
Thank you so much. remember you calculated the amount of pounds lost up in Roxborough, Person County support group.
We did. We were doing an experiment. I'm not getting in front of you. We did an experiment. I just wanted to see, because I also work for Duke and I do a little bit of research, and I sort of work with him just a little bit. But anyway, I said, let's get these numbers together. Actually, as Christy and I are going to get together on something, and we were way over to start 5,000, and then I kind of brought in a few more. What did we end up with? 7,200 pounds just in my group alone. Lost.
7,200 pounds lost.
Yes. And now I may even try that with our group. We'll pull Heal and Low Carb, and you would just really be surprised at the weight people. Now my group is young. We're only 2 years old. So in 2 years I've done my job. I feel like if somebody loses a pound, I've done my job. But 7,500 almost pounds lost in less than 2 years. That's just amazing. So this plan works. That's what all of us guys are up here for, including Dr. Westman. My story is I had diabetes with 2 insulin shots a day, 1,000 milligrams of metformin, pain pills, sleeping pills, you name it, I was on it. I don't take anything now, not even insulin. So this plan works, and if you'll join our support groups and Heal, I mean, you'll really get a lot of help. So, but 7,000 pounds is just amazing. So I may try this on the low carb for Durham and Amber, and I'll hit it for Heal just to see and give you guys an update. I would love to see it go way over. I bet it would be 15,000 at least if we pull Durham in. Mm-hmm. And what a story that would be. So, and it's all for him. So.
Thanks, Tammy.
Mm-hmm.
Tammy Gentry. So this isn't a clinic that Tammy runs. It's a support group.
That's right.
It's supporting other people, just changing the food. And, just step back. This is pretty incredible. And so in our clinic, people come. They most of the time they know what they're getting into. Not always though. We've helped 2,000 people that I can in the last 5 years lose 26,000 pounds. So the weight loss is, this is automatic, pretty much. You just have to follow the plan and not get too distracted by gummy bear vitamins. Or I don't know if they're gummies, but vitamins and all those things, yeah. Yes? You want to come on down? Or not? Okay.
I can talk loud, so I'm big too. I started Heal yesterday at 4 o'clock, so I appreciate your question, and I am here because of the whole frustration of not knowing where to turn. So I flew down from Northern Illinois on Sunday, and I asked Dr. Westman, he said, is there anybody here from Illinois? He said no. So they're just, I'm not finding it in my state or in the area. And he said, come tomorrow night, and there will be people like Tammy here, and just tell them, I need help, I need a support group. I feel like this Heal group is really a wonderful thing. I've been called by, the coach, and or if you guys, I don't know if y'all are in the Heal group or not, but there's a coach that comes with the Heal group, and a nurse practitioner, and a nurse doctor, and there's Amber, and all of them have been so responsive and have all called, and I just feel like I've got to get this support group that I've not had at home, and so I'd love to talk to any of you that help get something going, because I hate walking around, and I'm diabetic and have been diabetic for almost 30 years, and I know it can be healed. I know that it can, I'm not healed, reversed. I know it can be reversed, and I'm sure there's lots of people somewhere in Illinois that know it can be reversed, but I'd like to help others and get it taken care of with myself. So that's
Great, thank you. Be sure to meet Amber tonight, and then if anyone wants to buddy up with someone in Illinois, or please go up and say hello. And that's making these connections is really huge. Thanks for coming out. Roy, do you mind coming around while we answer this other question?
I just have something quick to say, actually. I've only been in the group for about 3 months, and I've lost 20 pounds, and that's probably all I need to lose. But I will continue on this because I feel better. I feel like I look better. But the thing that I love about this group is if you have a question, I mean, it can be the craziest, silliest question about a food or a carb or anything, and you post it on this Facebook page, somebody gets back to you quickly. You don't sit there for hours wondering, can I eat that? What about this? Or if you're gonna go out to eat, we're gonna go to this restaurant. Is there anything there that I can eat? Somebody will be there and already have an answer for you. That is what keeps you on track with this group. And I love it. It's perfect. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. So, I have a guest of honor tonight. A rare appearance by the nurse that works with me at Duke. This is Roy Williams. How many of you know Roy? Give him a hand. So we had the pleasure of spending some time on the low-carb cruise together. Roy and I went out on the cruise, and there are 20 lectures when you're at sea, and then you get to go on excursion. Of course, you have to go on the cruise and like cruising, but join us perhaps next time on the low-carb cruise in the spring. And then, of course, there's one in the fall now called Keto 101. These are Jimmy Moore, Debbie Hubbs creations. But Roy, I wonder, or maybe even some questions, what's it like to work in a keto clinic?
Well, first of all, let me tell you my story.
Oh, what's your story?
My story is that I came from far extreme to the other. And when I first started working with Dr. Westman, I didn't want to.
Wait, I've never heard this story. You always said.
And the reason being is that I personally, for 15 years, I had my own bakery. You know.
Oh, yeah, I heard this.
And I realized I was part of the problem. Now I'm full circle. I'm part of the solution.
That's right.
You know, and I had to try the diet myself. He didn't know I was on it until one of my coworkers told him. And at that time, I had lost about 30 pounds. And in a 4-month period, I lost almost 70 pounds.
Wow.
So, in order to talk the talk, I had to walk the walk. And right now, there's no other person I want to work with. To work with far extreme to not wanting to work with anyone else. But for us, the diet, once again, it works. It truly works. And once again, thank you. Once again, thank you. And give me another zero on my paycheck.
Well, I mean, just to clarify, I'm actually not Roy's immediate boss. Right? His paycheck. We're both these cogs in the big circle of Duke, and he's in the nursing world. I'm in general med. Anyway, I'll double your paycheck, Brad.
That's
Yes.
I don't know if you have time for one more question.
Well, I think so.
yeah, we
What
sure
time?
do.
Okay, sure. Come on down. Yeah. And in the back, if you want to come up and be ready, we'll save time.
So I started working with you March a year ago. And I was hugely successful until about February when things got really crazy, and then I started gaining weight back. And so I've just started again, but my blood pressure is higher than it's ever been. So I'm wondering, how long would it take for me to see results with that if I've done it for 2 weeks again?
Oh, well, so this is where monitoring, I would need to know numbers. And are you on blood pressure medicine?
Nope.
Okay.
My blood pressure's been 120 or below my entire life. So even in March, my blood pressure was low. So I was at my doctor's office just about 2 weeks ago, and it had jumped 40 points. And I know there's a lot of stressful things, and I'm working on a lot of different things to work with it, but I just didn't know how long it might take to.
Yes,
and it's probably different for everybody. So
I don't think it's the diet, which is often a common thing that you might attribute an issue to the diet when it's not related at all.
I think it's the diet I was eating 3 weeks ago.
Before?
Until February through 3 weeks ago.
So do you measure the blood pressure at home?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's the way to do it, and then just
keep monitoring
record it
it.
and send it in to your doctor or me if you're still active.
Right.
I'll look it over for you. There is a point at which with blood pressure that even if you're on a certain diet or not on a certain diet, at the point at which I would treat with a medicine, because blood pressure is a very serious thing potentially. That's one reason why you want to do this with a medical doctor if you've had blood pressure issues. I don't think the blood pressure would create it. The diet will create the blood pressure issue unless you have high blood pressure on medication. And in that case, I don't advise adding any extra salt. So in salt-sensitive conditions like high blood pressure treated with medicine or heart failure, I'll be very careful to individually, when people are leaving the class that I give, to remind them not to have extra salt, because that can raise the blood pressure and worsen heart failure. So those are conditions, again, if you have a medical problem, don't just do this without thinking through doing it with practitioners who understand it. So.
And we've got an appointment in a few months,
Okay.
you and I. So,
Fantastic.
But
So write them down, email me.
Perfect. Thank you.
That's what you get when you have a doctor who will follow you. So, come on over.
Hi, I'm Maddie Shank. I got a bunch of things to say, so I'm going to go through them really quick. Twice as loud. Oh, goodness. Okay, yes, I will speak up. Hi, I'm Maddie, and I started
You have a punch list.
keto. I do. I started the keto diet May 1st. I came to your 2 meetings ago, and I had mentioned that I couldn't afford my medications anymore. I was on GLP-1 agonist, which was a thing that kept me from, having those ravenous rages of food.
Diabetes medicine.
Right, and 2 other diabetes medicines. I couldn't afford any of it anymore. I came off of them. The lowest my A1C had been on all those meds was 6.7. I went to a free clinic that's run by UNC students who actually are being taught about the keto diet, and some of the nurses and medical students are on it themselves, and they know that it may prevent Alzheimer's, so the students at UNC are getting some of the good information. 6 weeks into the diet, my A1C was 4.8.
On medicine?
No, this was dropping the medicine
Off
about
medicine.
2 weeks before that, and then the 4.8. It was unreal. I was running all over the clinic. My A1C is 4.8. I was so thrilled, and I couldn't believe it. I still get chills thinking about
You
it.
check the blood sugars?
I check the blood sugars every single day, always in the morning, sometimes after I eat, figuring out what was making me spike. What was making me spike was eating too much broccoli, because broccoli has about 4.5 grams carbs per serving. And I was eating a whole crown of broccoli throughout the day. So throughout the day, and I was gaining weight, and I don't know why, and I can't remember if it was this support group or a different support group that I messaged on. We had this all-day conversation with me and people talking about this, and by the end of that,
really realized that's what it was, and really limited the vegetables down to that 1 cup of raw or half cup cooked, and 1 cup of the leafy greens. I can't do the 2. So I'm very sensitive. But yeah, it was amazing. Another thing is that my resting pulse had been about 75 to 80 for a long, long time. As of the past week, it's been 65, my waking pulse and my resting pulse. So to me, that's just a good thing that shows that I'm being calmer and more centered. I'm able to do that. I have ADHD. I'm going to be, so I'm always advocating about keto now. I even emailed Heal Clinics and said, I want to be an advocate. How do I work for you guys? And so I've got some things I'm going to do there, potentially. But in advocating for keto just about every place I go, my ADD women's group wants me to come and do a workshop for September. So I'm going to be probably asking some things about what I can use for that. But that's because I mentioned it to them, and 3 of them are very interested. 2 of them have started doing it on their own. But then one went to France and said, yeah, I couldn't really do it in France. So apparently the pastries were too good. I have a friend who's had blood pressure issues and a bunch of other things. She's coming to see you in October, and I can't wait because it's going to change her life, because she's had the low blood sugar and she's so afraid. She says that she keeps crashing, so that's going to be a task for you to help figure out how she's going to work on a keto diet if she's crashing. I said, well, they might be able to put you in the hospital for a couple days and check. I don't know, but it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting, and I'm going to drag her here once she's able to come to stuff. And I stopped gabapentin about a week ago because I'd seen on one of the groups people have been not needing that anymore. It's been a week. My feet have not swollen. My bones in my feet are not killing me. The arthritis is still there, but so I've been doing this since May 1st. Wow. And I want to start an Orange County keto and low carb group. So if there isn't one, I want to do that. And I also want to try to get meetings at my church in Hillsborough, which some of the folks are interested there. And so the ADD thing, last thing I'm going to say is that I get up every morning and I put the coconut oil in my coffee and a little bit of butter for that other flavor. One morning I missed. Didn't have any breakfast, was in a rush, went out to a class I was taking. 10 o'clock, I've got brain fog and I just can't think straight, and I'm starting to get shaky like you do when your blood sugar's crashing. But this was going on because I didn't have that fat, and that's all I ever have for breakfast is that, I call it genius coffee, right? It's got so to me, it really I know that it affects ADD, ADHD, because I don't take meds for that anymore either. I do have one question though. Because my triglycerides are over 300, and of course they want to put me on statins, and I'm like, this is not going to happen, it's just never going to happen, just don't waste your breath. Is eating that coconut oil, which is a medium chain triglyceride, is that in my bloodstream? Is that why it's showing up in the test as high, or how much does that actually raise it, or do we know?
So when was your blood triglyceride measured?
At that 6-week point.
So after you changed the diet, and were you fasting?
No.
So
no, I wasn't, because it was an evening appointment.
So you want to do a fasting value, but I don't know. No, triglyceride levels come down usually in a month, 2 weeks to a month. HDL levels take months to years to go up. What was the triglyceride before? Do you know? As a comparator.
Last time I'd been tested, it was in the low 200s, and so this 300 something was kind of a shock to me.
So that's within kind of the variation of what you would expect. So I don't know. So I don't have a whole lot of people using coconut oil, MCT, the classic keto, low carb, high fat, Dr. Atkins induction didn't use the bulletproof coffee, MCT, coconut oil. So there's a lot of interest in that, and I've seen some people over-consume the oils and butter so they don't lose weight. So you're going to burn the fat that you eat first before the fat on your body. So if you're losing weight, you want to be careful with the amount. but I've also heard people say they feel better with the ketones. I feel a little different. It's funny, I feel a little more gregarious. Like, I don't know if you've noticed that. I'll be at the clinic and I'll just feel more compelled to tell someone else about a patient, for example. But I don't feel any huge benefit from what coconut oil and MCT will do is increase your ketone levels, and some people feel a little difference in brain function, and it's interesting. I think there's a lot of individual variability with that, and gosh, continue what you're doing.
Yes,
huh?
okay, great. And I only use about a tablespoon of that and a teaspoon of butter. I try to keep it, limited.
So there's a limit to the oils and butter and cream on the plan that we have, and that's perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, come. And then would you like to come
All right, Rick, one
in
question.
the wings?
When I work out hard, I smell ammonia. He can't smell it, but all I can smell is ammonia when I work out. What's that?
Smell what?
I can smell ammonia when I work out.
On your clothes?
No, in my nose. I can't smell it. Everything smells like ammonia. He can't smell it.
And so a spouse doesn't smell.
He's the only one that smells it. Nobody else smells
When did this start?
it. Oh, it's always been that way when she exercises. She can smell
Like
ammonia.
really hard exercise. And aerobic.
Pre-keto or only after
Both.
keto?
Both.
Both. Huh. I don't know. So there is a rare condition where the story is the wife thought the cat was urinating in the laundry basket, and the husband's clothes were exercise clothes. He put them in the laundry basket, and she thought that. So if it smells like cat urine, does it smell like cat urine?
Well, it's ammonia. That's
Kinda like.
that's kind of. Yeah.
So there's a rare. I don't smell it. By the way, do you have a cat?
I had a cat, but
You
she's
had a
gone.
cat? She's gone. Okay. So.
But only after I work out, not during the
Yeah,
workout.
so there's a very unusual enzyme issue that I always have to look up on the internet. Look up, and it can happen with a keto diet, but this happened even without the keto diet. But look up what you're talking about and enzyme, deficiency. I don't think it's a life-threatening sort of thing, but it certainly might be annoying. And I don't know, you might want to call up one of the rare metabolic doctors at Duke. If you.
I don't think it's that bad. I mean, it smells like he can't smell it as long as he can't smell it.
But so, just getting back to the keto world, if there is something like that starting, it might be because of this enzyme issue. I've only heard about it once in 12 years, but don't stop exercising, right?
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Come on over. Or you want to be up?
I just wanted to ask you, what about women, say getting enough on the keto diet, getting enough calcium and magnesium for our bodies? Can you address that?
Yeah. So, do you get enough calcium? Do you get enough magnesium for your bones? Because if you didn't have milk, where would the calcium come from, right? Well, no, you're actually getting plenty of calcium, magnesium, and protein. Protein is really what the bones need. So, again, we've grown up in a world of add something, and we're now suffering from the psychology of subtraction, it's called, where all I do is take away things. And so you're going to feel like, well, how am I going to get enough? No, actually, this is the way humans ate before there was ever osteoporosis. And, but if you have a disease that's of something like osteoporosis and a doctor has you on a treatment for that, I certainly would continue that. But I don't think there's any worry because you're getting all of the nutrition in the food. And now talking about research studies, not a whole lot, but out to a year or so, an Australian study looked at bone density, no change with a keto diet. And so at least there's something to back that up. We need to one more. Come on down. Yeah, sure.
Oh, just real quick.
So like I stop my dinner like 7 or 6:30, whatever, and then I don't eat until 1. However, I have my bulletproof coffee in the morning. Does that interrupt the intermittent fasting?
Could you hear the question? So, so my traditional teaching, I don't really mention intermittent fasting. I didn't do the research on that. My research base is eat when you're hungry, don't eat when you're not hungry, eat foods that are low in carbs, don't ignore a signal of hunger even though you're timing a meal or something like that, and kind of don't worry about the timing. Now, that doesn't work for everyone, and some people do intermittent fasting. Now, the science behind it is not nearly as solid as the low-carb keto science. And if you go to a meeting like low-carb Breckenridge, where the giants of keto are doing sword battling, metaphorically speaking, the established researchers say there's not enough evidence about fasting beyond 2-3 days. Don't do total fasting. Okay, well, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about intermittent fasting, where you're eating every day, but you're constraining the amount and the time. And so I don't think anyone knows if, so the real question is, does my bulletproof coffee interfere with the intermittent fasting? And so you're gonna have to go to the intermittent fasting gurus, who, this is Jason Fung and Megan Ramos and their group. They have a training program and all that. And I don't know the answer to that. And if you feel comfortable eating once a day and you're eating great nutrition and you call that intermittent fasting, that's great. Some people even need that structure to avoid eating for a while. And if that gives you permission to not eat for 18 hours, to call it intermittent fasting, fantastic, as long as you're not hungry. You know, it's funny, I don't have to have breakfast. No, not if you're not hungry. You know, so is it working to what you want it to do?
Well, I guess maybe, I mean, it's not like I think, okay, it's 1 o'clock, I'm gonna eat now. It's when I start getting hungry. I'm not really like timing it.
Yeah, okay.
It's just, so maybe I'm calling it the wrong word, but I just don't wanna mess up my whole thing. Because that bulletproof coffee gets me happy in the morning. I'm a happy girl.
So the bulletproof coffee makes you a happy girl. Well, hard to argue with that. So you might change from cream to coconut oil, MCT, and butter.
I do MCT and butter, I don't do.
Yeah, and you may notice that there's a little extra clarity. You feel like you're less hungry for longer, and no research studies on that. But kind of like tonight I had you raise your hands about who doesn't have any hunger. There are no research studies on that either, but it exists. So it's in that area of, if it's working for you, I don't see why not.
Yeah, I'm raising my hand then just for that one. It helps me.
Yeah, okay. Yes. Last question.
Yes, my last, and I think it's appropriate because I went to Dr. Westman's clinic for a few years, every month, stuck to it, and every month asked the question, like, are you hungry? The thing that was the hardest to learn, and he said it every time, is only eat when you're hungry. And that's just kind of what you were saying, which is the idea of really asking, like, it's lunchtime. It's lunchtime. Am I hungry? And often, because also my appetite went down anyway, I didn't need as much to eat, so I wanted to reinforce about only eating when you're hungry.
Yeah, and that's not easy to learn. If you've lived X number of years, always timing, and it takes a little time. It's a process to unlearn that, but it works. I think our time's up.
It is up.
So
It
the
is.
September 22nd Roxborough event, please sign up for that. Bring your friends, neighbors. We want to get the largest event yet, and we'll have the rousing visit by Glenn Finkel, my business partner from South Africa, and he and his wife are full of energy and excited, and be great to have him and see you there as well. Oh, and Wickham Simons will be speaking as well at the ADAPT event, September 22nd. Yeah.
The write-up for that event said that you were going to give a personal training session and distribute literature. What kind of?
Yeah, so involved also with the HEAL event. You get the lectures, and then if you want, you stay and you get the handout that has the plan, and then I give a class according to that handout, which is the ADAPT eating plan, which is very similar to the HEAL handbook, which is very similar to the Duke page 4, which is very similar to what Dr. Atkins used for 30 years in New York City. As you visited him, it's all, so this is really kind of the classic teaching that's worked for a long time, and then that's part of the ADAPT. You can stay for a teaching class as well. Yeah. Now, if anyone's interested in signing up for HEALcare, please contact Amber or ask her about it. You could get in almost next week to an appointment, where if you come to see me at Duke, it might take 8 months to be in the queue to come in. So thank you so much for your help, Amber.
Our next meeting for this group will be September 4th. We'll be here, and be sure and go on the either HEAL clinics, Person County, HEALcare for Life. There's several different places you can go and RSVP for this. And just give us an idea so we have enough seats. I think we were a little short on seats this time, so.
The low-carb support group.
Yes, low-carb, yes, definitely.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thanks.